Hello, friends. Hi, happy Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. And if it's a long weekend for you, I hope that you have an extra relaxing, gentle long weekend. And hopefully the rest of your week sort of, has a slow vibe, less intense. And wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy time zone. I hope the weather is treating you okay. I hope there's a little bit of a spring vibe at least, and that it's not too cold, not too hot. We're sitting kind of in a rainy. Actually, we had a really nice, warm, hot weekend here in the BC area. And then today we're into rain. So it's a little bit of a balance, I think, which is okay. Hi there, Fuzzy Turnip. How are you? Tsuki, how's it going, friend? You see brown. Fine. Brown day vibe. Let's go. Yes, let's go. Don't tell fountain pen use because Wendy Sue's not a huge fan of brown inks, but I love brown inks. So we're going to do it. Good morning, Mark. How's it going? You're dying from the heat? Yeah, I mean, I've seen weather shifts, in different regions and things, and it's crazy out there. So I hope you're able to cool down, and I hope there's a little bit of a break from that at some point. But it is one of those up and down kind of periods too, I find. Fountain venues. I have all the browns for you, just for you. Yeah, you know what, Suki? You and I and anyone else who likes brown inks will just enjoy it. It's okay. I have other inks other than brown, because I do like to have a variety of different colors. I like to try and use up some of my sample inks as well. And sometimes they're not brown. And sometimes they're not colors that I may reach for normally. And so, I try and sort of push myself a little bit, especially in the spring and summer, when I find that I'm a little bit more adventurous than I am in the fall or winter, where I kind of stick to earthy, neutral tones. And so, yeah, we're kind of getting into that, I think. You like the color of the flower on the right? Are you talking about this one? This is my currently inked from last month, so from April, which I did on stream. And yeah, there's some really fun colors going on, some fun vibes. Hachimangia Jellyfish Aquarium was a really, really nice one. But some of these inks, really nice, and I kept them going into May. So we'll do a currently inked spread. I also wanted to paint with 4 of the inks that I have inked up in my fountain pens. And this is one thing I've been kind of trying to do when I do currently inked spreads, is I draw and I write with the fountain pens, but then I pick out a few of the inks that I'm using and I paint with those just to kind of, create their own little painted piece. And so that's what I wanted to do as well. And I'm probably going to do that first before we create the currently inked spread, just because I have about an hour and a half to stream because I'm going out for lunch, and so I'm kind of limited in terms of time. So I wanted to do a little bit of painting first, let it dry, and then while it's kind of drying, then we'll kind of get into it. We'll get into the fountain pens, we'll get into the inks that I've inked up and that I'm using. So it isn't going to happen, even if it did, I would never tell. Yeah, fountain pen use is secretly in the back inking up all the brown inks. That is so funny. You like red, pink, and browns, Fuzzy Turnip? Pink browns. Red or pink browns. Got it. Yeah, you know what? I do enjoy browns that also have they're either chroma shaders or they have some sort of secondary property to it. You get a little bit of interesting properties that way as well. But Listen, I will use browns over blacks because black inks to me in a fountain pen, even though I have inked up fountain pens with black ink because they're so standard, I also do it begrudgingly because it's so like, of all the ink color choices, why do I have to go with black, right? So, yeah. Olive Octopus, how's it going, Lisa? Mostly lurking. That's all good. We're here for company. We can all hang out. You know what I like more than brown and purple inks? Where are we going? Oh, I'm going to a ramen place with my husband. We try and do lunch dates every now and then when we can. And so he works with American teams or North American teams and also worldwide teams. And though while he's on the Canadian schedule in terms of holidays and long weekends and things, he also has a quieter day when another team has their holidays. And so because of the US holiday today, his day is a little bit quieter than usual. And so we can actually go out for lunch and grab a quick lunch that way. But I'm kind of looking forward to it. A nice chroma shading brown is Sepia Hour by Troublemaker. Ooh, I do like Troublemaker inks. They are fun. Yeah, chroma shaders are fun. I like those. 3-stream streak, Tsuki. Here we go. And you just recreated your username, and you're already streaking. Well, we're gonna have some fun in the time that I have. We'll make the most of it. And I wanted to also show off and kind of showcase, I guess, one of the inks that I got a little sample bottle of recently. And this is the Scriven Montreal 2026 Pen Show ink. And it is in collaboration with Pennonia and Scriven, the Pen Show organizers. And so they sent over a sample just to kind of play around with. And as you can tell from the label on the bottle, it is reddish brown. This is especially for you, fountain pen use. But it is a really nice shade of brown. So if you missed it, I did post my initial sort of painting and playing around with the ink on Instagram. So take a look there if you're interested, but also we'll kind of play around with it today. So I'll do a little bit of painting and we can explore it a little bit more. But it is nice. I used watercolor paper to paint with it initially, just so I could kind of see, the properties. And I tend to be able to sort of play around a little bit more on watercolor paper just because you can throw a lot of ink on the paper. So that's what I did. But we're also going to paint with, aside from the Scriven ink, we're also going to paint with Murky Pond Water, which is the latest ink release from TheCoffeeMonsterzCo by Robert Oster. And also one of my favorite sort of pinkish, peach, orangey inks, Sailor Manyo Sakura. And it is such a nice ink. And also, I wanted to try and use up my sample of, and I'm really sad because I love this ink so much. It is Nagasawa Kobe Akashi Museum Gold. So, yeah, I did, use it in my pen, and I've been really enjoying it, but also it's kind of almost done. So that's okay, right? That's what sample inks are for. You either, you like it or you don't. And if you like it, enjoy it, use it, right? So really excited to paint with that as well. Have you met Aging Ink Trail? No, I haven't. She was at Scriven. Yeah, she also created the ink bottle label. And she's one of the co-organizers of the pen show in Montreal. So I'd actually pulled up her Instagram page because do check out her art. It is amazing. And it's very, very cool. Worth looking at, like worth following too, because it's just great art. And she did, I did get one of her covers. She created like a TN passport cover, and I got it from Galen at Fountain Pendulum at the SF Stationery Fest, and it was really, really cool. And I'm just trying to think where I have it, because then I can show you. Okay, hold on one second. Here it is. So she hand painted a number of different covers, and I got this one because it's a nod to Toronto, Ontario, distillery district. If you've ever been, really, really cool. But yeah, I just love, the effect of the paint or the ink, like how she painted with it, and what it looks like. So yeah, really happy with that. Very cool art. So definitely worth checking out and following. Yeah, you're going to Scriven this weekend, Fuzzy. You might have to pick it up, maybe. Yeah, should definitely meet for sure. That would be so fun. I definitely have to go to the Montreal Pen Show one of these years. I think it's in its second year, second or third. But yeah, it's one of these years. I have to make an effort to go. It is tough, getting across the coast for a one-day show. So I definitely have to make a trip out of it, tack on some other things, which is fine because Quebec is amazing. But yeah, one of these years I will. So like I said, I'm going to paint with 4 inks that I have inked up first. And then while it dries, we'll go through my currently inked fountain pens. Yeah, feel free to let me know what you've been up to this weekend, or anything that you're enjoying in terms of acquisitions or new stationery, or just any stationery you've been really enjoying and been having fun with. And if you have the day off, what are you up to? So this is Sailor Manyo Sakura. And it is really nice on this Midori cream paper. So if you're curious, I'm using the MDTN insert, which is made with Midori cream. And I've been using this as my sketchbook for ink paintings and just painting in general, because I've really enjoyed this cream paper with different colors, with different inks, different paints. I just find it looks really, really nice and not as aggressive and intense as sometimes you find on stark white paper, which historically has been my favorite paper, but I don't know, in the last year or so, I've been really loving Midori cream and just off-white paper in general, I think. Like the paper you get with plotters and, just, yeah, doesn't have to be cream, but just off-white is like a little bit gentler on the eyes. Is the old person thing to say, but it's true. How big is the Montreal Pen Show? That's a good question. I've never been, but apparently it's bigger this year than it was last year. It takes place at, I should know this. It's called Fuzzy Turnip will know, but it's in an old restored church type setting, and I think they have like you could sort of take up different halls in the building. And this year they've expanded the space that they're taking up. And also, you know, with that comes more workshops, more classes on their website. Like if you are in the area, if you're in the Montreal area or you can get there, it's worth checking out because on the site they have, you know, you could sign up for different sort of seminars and things where you can actually play around with inks and stuff like that. So this year I think is just, you know, they've sort of expanded the amount of space, but also the amount of things to do, and the vendors too. Zodiac pens, how's it going? How's it going, Bart? This is it's a TN standard size. So it fits into a TN cover. Go on a trip to learn French and become a true Canadian. I'm poking fun at you, yeah. I'm never going to be a true French Canadian. Always an English Canadian first. But I do know a little bit of French, okay? I can get by. But it would be very obvious that I'm not French. Yeah, French is obligatory. It's expected in some places, especially in some places in Quebec. But also, I mean, you know, I think it's one of those things like, I have the same sort of mindset in terms of traveling, is if I'm traveling to a country where they're not English first, I try and make an effort to learn a few words in their native country, in their native language, whatever it may be, just to kind of show that I'm making an effort. And it also makes it a little bit of like more interesting, right? Where you can kind of dig into their language, their sort of the customs around how you sort of do things there. And Quebec is one of those places in Canada, right? They're French Canadian. And so if you can make an effort and practice some of the French words, especially if you've learned it in school or, you know, wherever else, then they appreciate it, right? So it's like, it is obvious that French is not my first language. But I don't think people care that much in terms of like, as long as you make an effort and you're showing that, you know, you respect where you are, right? I think people appreciate it that way. Scriven is still in the first few years and growing. Yeah, 46 tables. That's awesome though. Especially for a one-day show. Like it's still a lot to organize and a lot to put together and coordinate. So I'm glad they like the venue. And I'm glad they're sort of able to make the most of the space that they have available to them as well. I'm out planting my tomato farm and listening along. That's awesome. You need an earth tone brown ink. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Fuzzy. I need to sell art so I can buy more pens. Isn't that how it goes? All right. Okay. So as it dries, you can see the different sort of coloring that's coming out now, right? You kind of see the pink and layers of, or, you know, aspects of peach, orange too, a little bit of like yellowish warm tone. Very cool. I love this ink. It's really, really great. Similar to other kind of Sailor Manyo or Sailor, you know, chromo shading inks. Very, very cool. All right, so then I'm gonna layer a little bit of this Scriven ink. So it's called Silent Old Beam. I added a little bit of water just to desaturate a little bit. But it's called that because it pulls inspiration from the interior of the venue that they're using for the pen show. And so the warmth of the wooden ceiling and the richness of the red flooring. And so that's why it's sort of the shade of red brown. So I'm going to try and show you a little bit of a close-up of the label. So it's very, very cool. Very cool inspiration, but also, you know, how the ink sort of turned out, I think. And maybe Fuzzy, after you go, you can tell us, you know, how close this color is to the actual structure of the building. Whether it does kind of remind you of that would be very fun. Not that it has to, but it'd be very interesting to see. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of the ink out and add a little bit on the paper so it's not watered down. A little bit there. Because it is a little bit dark. It's a darker sort of reddish brown, which is nice, but maybe not so easy to paint with and then draw on top of it. So I think I put enough. Okay, so it's called Silent Old Beam, and then the French version of that name is Vieux Chevron Silencieux. So that's my French take on that French attempt en français. But yeah, very, very cool. And then we have those two. So then we have Murky Pond Water by Robert Oster and TheCoffeeMonsterzCo. And this was released, I think, a month ago now, something like that. Also, one of my favorite shades of gray because it is such an interesting color. It is such an interesting shade. And I love inks that have different properties or aspects to it that just make it a little bit more interesting rather than, you know, your standard sort of gray, brown, black, etc. It's kind of nice to have colors and inks that, you know, show off a little bit more. So that's what this ink does, because you get aspects of purple, green, and a little bit of pink as well, depending on how much you sort of put down on paper. So, you know, if you do put it into a fine or extra fine nib, then you may not see as much, but I will show you in one of the fountain pens that I have inked up. But you can see different sort of properties to it as well. Okay, so we have Murky Pond Water. You'll be my reporter on the ground. Thank you, Fuzzy Turnip. We'll look out for your reports. And also when you get back, let us know. Hi, Needle Girl. No notification. Yeah, I'm glad you looked at the clock. Twitch. You know, sometimes Twitch just twitches. That's one of those things. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. Is it a bit waterproof? I like having things that are a bit waterproof for writing client notes in case of rain. I don't think it is. Like they don't specifically say that as a property, so I would assume no. But it's also, you know, it's also really dark and rich. So it doesn't come across as like a watery type of ink. I did have to kind of water it down just because I wanted to see a little bit more of the red come through. But if you use it just straight from the bottle, ink it up in your pen, it is quite dark. It's more brown than red, if that makes sense. Like the red sort of tints it gives it sort of like a dark tint, if that makes sense. So it's not like a standard brown in that it's like, that's all that comes through. You do get a little bit of the red, but probably not as clearly as if you watered it down. So let's use my sample of Kobe Akashi Museum Gold. And I have to say I've really enjoyed Kobe inks lately. Just all of them have been on point. Just really nice and enjoyable. Really nice shades. Kind of my type of shades too. Love this olive green color. Trying to use most of it, if not all. Okay, good enough. All right. So let's write down the ink names. And then I'll let it dry. Okay, so Sailor, Manyo, Sakura. Then we have Pennonia and Scriven 2026. Silent Old Meme, which is a really fun name to have. Very interesting. Robert Oster and the TheCoffeeMonsterzCo. Murky Pond Water. And then Nagasawa Kobe. Akashi. Museum Gold. Okay. Very cool inks. Like, they're all very interesting. Nice shades. Dual shaders, chroma shaders, multi-shaders. Very cool. So we'll let that dry. And let's get into fountain pens. You love that Kobe? Yeah, Lisa, I know you've used it before, and I'm always like, yes, I love this green so much. They have a museum series, right? Like of inks, because there's like a couple of them at least that I've seen samples of and used. And I just found like all of them were really good. The ones that I saw. You need to set reminders, Needle Girl. You're de-seeding berries to make jam. Oh, that's so awesome. One of these days I have to try your jam. I've heard so much about it. I want to try. Lady Grey by Diamine is cool. Yeah, I have heard that as well. There are some very cool grays. Purple and green are the best. You began a daily drawing challenge, Mark. That's awesome. Just do something art-wise every day, no matter what. Yeah. Because sometimes we don't feel like it, but that can be the best time for you to do it, to move past difficult emotions. Yeah. It helps to care less about the result and just do it for the practice, for sure. I totally agree. And I also agree about the part where if you're going through something, or if you're just like, stressed and life is lifing, and you feel like a little overwhelmed and just, in those moments, we do tend to kind of think like I don't want to have fun. I don't want to take out my stationery. I don't want to do art. I don't want to draw or paint or do any of those things. And yet those are probably the times where you should be doing that. Especially if you're, if you don't want to write about it, if you don't want to journal about it. Art is a great way of sort of processing some of the things we're going through. But also it's a way of giving your mind a break from constantly churning those thoughts of worry or, whatever else is sort of going on in your life. And I found that to be very, very true when I went through some big life changes, and as we all kind of have to go through sometimes. And those are the times where we're like, I don't have time for this, but you need to make time, because often we'll find that even if, it doesn't solve things, right? Creating art is not going to solve your problems, but it will give you a little bit of a break from having to think about things all the time, which can be tiring, and it can also take a physical and emotional effect on you. So yes, I totally agree. And good on you for starting that practice and for doing that practice and for keeping up with it too, because it's tough. It's like exercising. After a few days or like a week of doing it, you're like, sweet, I'm done. I'm not going to do this forever. And yet we probably should. 2 online friends of mine are doing it along with me. Yeah, that is so cool. What do you recommend to get to draw with fountain pen ink? I recommend a paintbrush and dedicated to your fountain pen inks. You can get a water brush like Lisa tends to use sometimes, where it has a water reservoir and you can just fill it up with water, and that way you can flush out your brush if you're using various inks, and just kind of dab it on, a cloth or something to change out the colors. Or just get like a round brush like I use, multiple styles and sizes and stuff. Nothing fancy. And then also dip pens if you can, a dip nib or dip pens. Those are fun ways of using fountain pen inks for sure. Drawing, sketching. Yeah. The green, yeah. The Kobe. So good. Water brushes are wonderful to use. Yep, for sure. You can put your request in for SF. That's awesome. Okay, well, here's a request for SF. If possible, I would love to try some of your jam, Needle Girl. Yeah, when I'm down, I have zero motivation. I wanted to say modification. It's like, nope, that's not it. Yeah. And I like it, I immediately much happier. Yeah, for sure. Even sometimes when I'm creating art and I don't like it, especially because like I'm going through, if you're angry or something like that, where it's like you're not relaxed. You need to relax, but you're not relaxed. I still find that like just the doing will help in that case. Where afterwards I don't feel so angry or, whatever the emotion is. I don't feel it to that extent. It doesn't feel as intense as it does. And that's also, you sort of working through relaxing, watching your breathing, bringing it down to a normal, level. And then letting that time pass, right? Like sometimes if you're really worked up about something, you're really stressed or you're really worried, it helps to just sit. And part of that is time will pass and your body will sort of, regulate itself with some help if possible. But art is one of those things where you're almost distracting yourself while you're, regulating and working through those really tough emotions. And so it's a distraction, but it's also you're using your hands, you're keeping yourself busy. And I would rather do art than do like chores or clean or something, right? Which some people find helpful, but I don't because it gets me all stressed out anyways. There's a sailor dip pen, yeah, with a water brush tip. Yeah, the glass stir rods help a lot, right? For sure. Especially if you're getting, ink out of ink bottles and stuff like that. Rods will kind of fit into even narrow openings in your bottles or sample vials. So you've been coloring with syringe, put a drop and then keep airing it out. Yeah, for sure. Or you can use a spoon and like move it around, right? I got one of these small sort of, it has a stirring rod on one end, so you can use that for swatching. And then it has like a tiny little spoon end, or kind of looks like a shovel actually. But this is helpful for, you put a drop of ink and then you move it around. So you can use that for swatching or just kind of, a painting type of motion as well. So that can be helpful. You're on day 3. At least you're past day 1, right? Day 1 is always like, should I do it today? What notebook am I going to use? What tools am I going to use? Lisa, your stream schedule holds space for the creative, even if I'm not always feeling it. Yeah, I 100% feel that. And even if like sometimes I sit down, like, and we'll find it on stream as well, right? You sit down to do art or whatever, and you get distracted. And then you spend an hour looking at ink samples online and stuff like that. But, it's one of those things, like, your mind wanders, but not on, like, your daily life and the things that you have to get done and all those things. You let yourself think about stationery. You let yourself think about your hobbies, things that you're interested in, that make you happy. So that's always good, I think. Rods are the easiest to clean and use with multiple inks. Yeah, for sure. Winston Churchill used to lay bricks regularly to shut his mind off for a bit. Whatever works for you, right? Whatever works for you, for sure. Arts and crafts, anything to keep your hands busy, anything to keep your mind off of thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. You kind of get stuck in this loop of like worrying or stressing out about something. All right, so let's get started on currently inked fountain pens. And for this, I'm using the Everyday book from Galen Leather. It is Tomoe River paper. in a TN standard size. So this would fit in a TN cover, which is why I used or picked this booklet to do my currently inked in, because then I can just keep it in a TN cover and I can refer to it anytime I'm kind of thinking of what inks I feel like inking up that month or what different combinations look like. So in terms of pen, nib, and ink. Sometimes I think something's going to work, and for some reason, you know, the ink doesn't really work well with that nib size, or, you know, it just doesn't, I just don't feel it. And so having it down as reference is really helpful in those cases where either I can, you know, I can sort of document inks with pen and nib combinations that I really enjoy, or I can sort of document it as like, I tried it, it was okay, probably won't do it again. And I've had that happen as well. So I have, you know, inked up a pen thinking it was going to be great with this ink. It goes so well. It matches the ink, the pen body. And then it turns out I just don't like it. You know, I just don't like the ink in that pen. And it's okay. It's okay to move on from that and not do it again. And put it in a different pen, you know, or you decide maybe that ink isn't really an ink that I want to write with. You know, it's too light, or it's not as legible as I thought it was, or sometimes it takes so long to dry. You know, different things can happen with inks, and it's kind of interesting to explore them and also document them. If you're like me, so you know for next time what to expect, or, you know, just kind of move on from your experience as well. And sometimes I find, you know, ink combinations I really like with certain pens that I kind of forget about. And so when I flip through, it sort of reminds me as well, you know, I have that ink. It's sitting in my drawer. It worked really well with this pen. Why not ink it up again, right? So why not bring it back? So that's kind of fun to do. What do you call the rod with the spoon end? I think, well, I got this from Fountain Pendulum at the SF Stationery Fest. She just had like a bunch of different types of rods and spoons and stuff. I think she just called it like a mini spoon. It's handmade, so I mean, that's why it kind of looks less spoon-like and more like a shovel or something. But I think like a mini spoon type thing would work. Day one, I did a pretty sweet Procreate monster. That's cool. Also, monsters are a little bit like, or blobs, or, you know, those types of shapes are really fun and kind of get you out of that, like, I have to draw, you know, a specific thing. I have to draw a cat or a dog or something like that. And that can be stressful in its own way. But a monster is very, very cool. Okay, so the first pen is one that I have inked up for all of this year so far. And then last year I kind of occasionally used it. But this year I'm using it as one of my daily writers. And it is the Pilot Custom A23, one of the bigger pens, with a signature nib. And it is one of the stock Pilot nibs with the A23. And so I thought that's kind of cool. It's like a stub variant, and decided to try it out. And I love that. I think it's a great sort of journaling nib. And I have this inked up with Murky Pond Water. So Robert Oster and TheCoffeeMonsterzCo. And I wanted to put this ink into a wider nib, just because it's so much easier to see sort of the dual shades that are in this ink. You know, you get the sort of gray that is the main ink color, but it's kind of nice to try and pinpoint the other shades that come through as well. And this nib just allows you to put down a lot more ink, especially if you write in big bold letters, but my writing is kind of a medium size. Not too small, but... and it's called Murky Pond Water. Here we go. So we'll take a look at it when it's dry, but yeah, you know, you can see a little bit more of the characteristics of this ink, and to me, it actually looks more like a green gray. So I see that it's gray, but I see like an underlying green tone to it. So I don't know if you do, but I think that makes it look really, really nice. So another reason why I like this ink a lot versus like a standard sort of gray or lighter gray. You get more of those gray tones, but with this, it sort of has this like green aspect to it, which I really like. Okay, have you seen my kintsugi? Because if you haven't, I have had this inked up for the last like 2 years since it was released. It was a Black Friday / holiday release from Stilo e Stile, and it's a collaboration obviously with Leonardo, a Momento Zero, and it has the kintsugi philosophy or, you know, theme of using gold to, you know, cover up or sort of add characteristic to mistakes or what's it called? Like when you have broken glass or ceramic or something like that. And so, you know, you get these sort of gold flakes or gold, flakes, I guess, in the body throughout. And then with the nib and stuff, it's just so nice. And I had it custom ground by Gena from Custom Nib Studio into a reverse architect. So on the correct side of writing, it's it writes sort of in a fine line, but on the reverse side, it writes in the sort of broad architect line. It is super, super fun to write and play around with. Very useful too. Like if you sort of, you know, you want to jot down notes, but you want to have a header, or if you want to sketch something out, all you have to do is kind of flip around the nib and you get this line variation. So that's cool. Now the ink I have it inked up with is an ink sample that I wanted to finish, and it's called, it's a Colorverse ink. It's called Coffee Break. It's a really nice brown, sort of like a deep brown. So very good. Very nice sort of pairing with a gold colored pen. But I'm also done that sample, so I'm trying to use up use it up as much as I can. I think it's almost dry, so. Fountain pen use since your hand has been paralyzed. You've been doing a lot of messy ink stuff. Yeah, you know, a great time. It sucks that your hand is messed up, but a great time to do that kind of exploration where normally you might be like, you know, this feels weird, or I don't want to. This is kind of like, yeah, well, that's all you can kind of do, right? But you can still have fun with inks in that way, so that's good. I have a sort of ink journal like this where I log my inks, but drawing on it would spice it up. Let's see, Tsuki. You can get those spoons for cocktails too. Yeah, you know what's interesting? All the sort of cocktail supplies, right? Like stirring rods and things like that, that you can actually use for ink-related activities, right? Yeah, this is very, very cool. Tsuki, this is very cool. And again, love your writing. But this ink is awesome. Oh, you have it in a 912 with an FA nib. Very cool. Oh, that writes really nicely. Yeah, that's nice. I like the characteristics of that ink. Thanks for sharing. This could be fun. Oh, yeah. Jam mixing stick. Yeah, it's like one of those honey, like to grab honey from a jar or something, I guess. So yeah, you can use it for jam, anything sticky in a bottle that you're trying to. You could also try using it as like a glass dip pen, but I don't know. I don't know if that would, maybe for painting, but maybe not. Some things work, some things, you know, you might have to alter a little bit, customize it. You put ink and roll it up? Yeah. Paw Gal, how's it going, friend? You lost track of time. That's okay. We are here. We're waiting for you. You've arrived. I'm just going through my currently inked pens, and I already did a little bit of painting with some of the 4 of the inks that I have inked up. And so I'll do a little bit of drawing on top of this. It's almost dry, I think. Pretty much dry. So we'll do that afterwards. I'm only going to be streaming for another 30 minutes or so, just because I'm going out for lunch. So we'll get it done. Let me just double check. Okay. This ink, I don't know if it's a nib and ink combination or if it's the ink. I don't know what it is, but I've had a lot of hard starts with this ink. And this, you know, this pen, obviously, this nib hasn't given me issues before. So I'm wondering, I think it's the ink. But this pen is a Zodiac Penco pen with Jonathan Brooks Carolina Penco material called Caffeine Withdrawals. It is such a beautiful pen, and I love that I can throw any nib into it that I want to. And I'm using a B-SIG from Franklin-Christoph, which is ground by Audrey, and love this nib. But the ink I have in it is called, it's a Callifolio ink, which I think they're based out of France. But I got a sample of it from a friend, and I like the ink. The color is very nice. It's sort of like a latte type of color, or terracotta almost, maybe. So it is nice. It's just, I think the ink has been sort of a little finicky in this pen for some reason. So I've had to sort of find ways to get the ink flowing smoothly. So Zodiac Penco, and it's the Capricorn model. And the nib is a B-SIG. And the ink is Callifolio Havane. So it's writing fine now, but I find that every once in a while it just kind of dries out, or just it's not flowing through, and I don't know. Could be a user error, I don't know, but also, who knows? I haven't played around enough with the ink to sort of figure it out. But it's a really nice ink color, right? It's sort of on the lighter side of brown and the family of brown inks, so that's kind of nice. All right, the next one I have is the Esterbrook Estie from the Quirky Leaf. It's called Quirky Leaf, and I like this green. It's really nice. And the nib I have in it is a Katana, B journaler, broad journaler. So I had it custom ground by Gena from Custom Nib Studio into a journaler from a broad nib. So it's a broad version of a journaler. And the ink I have in here is that sample of Nagasawa Kobe Akashi Museum Gold. And so you can see it writes so nicely. Such a great ink. Very, very nice green. So it does have, that sort of warm gold, yellow kind of aspect to it, which is nice. All right. Then we have another Estie, Nouveau Bleu as the pen. And in this pen I have the Techo nib. So I think someone brought up the Techo nib in a topic on the Pen Addict stream a couple weeks ago or so. And I thought, you know what? I need to bring out my pen and this nib because it is one of my favorite all-time nibs. And it is ground by CY for Esterbrook when it's the Techo nib. But you can also get this custom ground by CY at a pen show or, at an event where he's at. But it's ground, the Esterbrook Techo nib is ground from a broad nib. And so your line variations will depend on your angle, but also the sort of the widest line you'll get is a broad line. And that's what makes the Techo really, really fun is, you can get those really nice broad lines. Especially if you want to write in cursive or, big block letters or something like that. But then if you have a higher writing angle, you get a little bit of a finer or less broad line. So you can kind of play around with the line variations that you like and the line widths. And that makes it fun as well. So I have it inked up with Colorverse Windy City Blue. And it was the Chicago Pen Show ink for their 45th anniversary. What year was that? 2 years ago, I think, maybe? Something like that. But I also won this ink in a Pen Addict giveaway on Brad's Twitch stream at some point. And I'm really glad I did because it's such a nice blue. So it's like a dark teal blue or turquoise blue, which is right up my alley of blues that I like. So I think the Callifolio inks are on the dry side. Oh, okay, thank you, Olive Octopus, because it feels like that for sure. It feels like that for sure. So yeah, that makes sense. And maybe that's like a, yeah, maybe that's like a Callifolio thing. And that's cool. You just have to put it into a wetter nib or a broader nib and kind of, you know, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not a huge fan of dry inks, but knowing that, like if that's just how they are, then it helps because then you know what to expect at least. Those colors are gorgeous. Thanks, Fafa Gal. How has your weekend been? How have you been, friend? You're thinking of buying this. Oh, yes. A set of colored glass mixing spoons for cocktail and drinks. Yeah, this is awesome. And this would actually be useful, right? I don't think I have it here with me, but I picked up a handmade sort of glass spoon, this sort of shape-ish, similar to this, also at the SF Stationery Fest from Galen. And yeah, it is very helpful. And, you know, just know like the bigger the size of the spoon and more surface area that it covers, right, the bigger your swatch can be as well. So you don't have to do a lot of sort of moving around the spoon to move around the inks. It's a beautiful pen. You have one too? Yeah. Yeah, I love the green. Same. Blue turquoise. Yeah, what do you think of this Colorverse Windy City Blue, Tsuki? Because it does kind of remind me of like a Tsukio type of ink. Right? Like it's a dark blue, but it's not just like a standard blue. Time to spend money. Get all the things that you need, for sure. I love when there's crossover of tools from, you know, other things like cocktail making and stuff like that we can use in our hobby, right? Blunt tip syringe. Yeah, so fun. Okay, this pen is the Sashiko from Schon Design, made for Custom Nib Studio. So collaboration pen, very, very cool. And one of my favorite pens because I can't stop inking it up. It's just like, yeah, it's just great. It's nice and light in weight, so it doesn't weigh a lot, but it has, you know, it has a nice design to it. So it's interesting. And it's also just so classic that you can throw any ink into it, right? Like any combination of ink works with this pen. And so, yeah, I can't kind of put it away. And I have a perspective nib, which is a Gena nib perspective. And this one also gives you those line variations depending on the angle that you're holding it at. So that it makes it really fun. And then this pen I have inked up with Sailor Manyo Sakura. So I thought that was really fun to throw in a black ink or black pen. It's a nice surprise. Very, very cool. So 2 more pens, and these are pocket pens that I have inked up. Mostly for like quick note taking or jotting things down. This one is the Pilot E95S. It's a very nice pocket pen, and probably one of my favorite pocket pens to have because it's so easy to uncap. Very satisfying too when you cap it and uncap it. But it writes really smoothly. It's a Pilot. So I love using it, and I mostly use it for daily, like jotting down my daily tasks. So I have an A7 notebook, an MD notebook. And so it's kind of nice to just like be able to use a fountain pen for daily, just, you know, writing down your tasks, your to-dos, which are not fun all the time. But doing it in a fun way helps sometimes. So this nib is a medium nib. And very smooth, very nice. And the ink I have in here is, wait, let me see. Oh, this is what I inked up the Scriven ink in. So this is Silent Old Beam. So you can see when you're writing with it, it actually does, it looks brown, but especially if you're using broader nibs, you'll get more of that red sort of coming through. So it makes it a little bit more interesting that way. But it is, you know, for a brown, it's a really nice color, I think. I think it's a nice shade. Not sure fountain pen use would agree, but yeah, there she is. The full high attitude sun beat me. Oh no, Tomato Farm will have to continue later after some cloud cover. Yeah. Take care of that sun for sure. The weekend was not too bad. Lots of relaxation. Good, good. The fact these are colored won't affect... No, it won't affect the ink. I mean, the only thing I can think of is if you're using colored glass, is that when you're putting it down, it sort of might play tricks with your mind, right? Because you're seeing sort of this translucent color. But I don't know. I don't know if that will have any effect, really. It's not gonna cloud up your inks or anything like that, so. You're gonna go spend money. Yeah. Yeah, love the nib, for sure. The sun can be a beast, just... Okay, so last pen, this is the Kaweco Liliput, really, really small, very cute pocket fountain pen. But what you do is you do post it by threading. So there is threading in the back, at the top, so you can thread the cap. And once you do, it's sort of this, you know, regular size fountain pen, at least longer than it was. And because it's metal, the one that I have is a copper, it's heavier, and so it feels, there's quite a bit of weight to it, at least with the metal versions. So the nib I have in it is a medium. And it writes really nicely for a pocket pen as well. Very smooth. And the ink I have in this is somewhat of a regular Poussière de Lune from Herbin. Which is like a really nice sort of purpley mauve color. And I like this ink as any Herbin inks because it is very reliable and just, it always just smooth. It just flows really smoothly in my pens. So I tend not to have any issues with them. Which I don't want to be messing around with a pocket fountain pen, especially if I'm wanting to use it, you know, just for writing down notes or jotting down something. I don't want to be like trying to get ink to write and stuff like that. So I always tend to stick with inks that are tried and true, inks that I know will behave, you know, in the pen that I put it in, and that's usually one of the Herbins. So those are my currently inked fountain pens, all 8 of them. So it seems to be a trend with me over the past 6 months, maybe, that I'm kind of sticking to, 8 to 10, not even 10, like I'm kind of the 8 number of fountain pens inked up is kind of my sweet spot currently, which like a year ago was more like 15 to 16. And so I've kind of really narrowed down the amount of pens that I'm inking up. One, because I don't like cleaning them. It's one of those things, I just don't like it. It's not fun. I don't look forward to it. I try not to do it. And so the pens and inks that I choose, I tend to kind of, ink up for more than a month sometimes, especially if they're inks and pens that I'm using for like in a specific book or for a specific purpose as well. So this Pilot 823, for example, I'm using in my Hobonichi 5-year, and it's just to write down the events of the day. And so it helps that I keep a consistent ink in there, because I like to see, at least for 6 months at a time, because then I kind of like to see the variation in ink colors year over year. And so pens like that, I tend to just kind of keep the same ink in there. Sometimes I switch it up if I get an ink sample and it's similar to the color of ink that I like to have in the pen. For example, the Kintsugi. I do like to keep a brown ink in here. And so if I get an ink sample that's brown and it looks really nice and I want to try it out, then I usually sort of pair it with a pen that I already have used brown inks or that kind of shade of ink in before. But otherwise, I'm kind of, sticking to the pens that I really enjoy. Like, the Sashiko, which I got in Portland last year, I've kind of been inking up ever since. An Estie of some color usually is in my lineup. And then my pocket pens, I do like to have at least 1 or 2 pocket pens inked up just because they're so convenient to use, right? Especially if they're sitting at my desk and I just need to write down some notes or write, my daily task list or something like that. It's easy to just grab a pen that I can, use very quickly and put away. But the Sashiko, the 2 Esties, and the Zodiac Penco, so these 4 pens I've been using for stream of consciousness writing. Mostly in the morning. Sometimes, whenever I have time during the day, I just sit down and I just kind of brain dump or write unfiltered, just, words on paper. And it helps to use a pen that I really enjoy writing with. And that's where I kind of explore different ink colors as well. and have a little bit of fun with them that way. So really enjoying those pens and inks. Like I said, a couple of those ink samples I'm kind of finishing or finished. So they're kind of done, and that's cool. I'll have to clean out the pen if I must. I'll clean out the pen and I'll pick something else to throw in there. All right, so in the last 10 minutes, I'm just gonna add a little bit of detail to my painting, which turned out really nice because these colors are just like very, very pretty colors. So I love how they kind of work together and how they look together as well. So it's a very nice palette, maybe not as bright and summery, but I like the pink vibe in there. So for drawing on top of ink paintings, I like to use the Kakimori stainless steel nib. It's kind of my go-to in a Zodiac Penco nib holder. So I like how this nib, how you can use it to draw with. I'm just kind of used to doing it. So, and I also use a Kakimori pigment black ink. So it sits on top of the ink and it still kind of stands out, but it doesn't take away too much from the ink that's underneath. I don't want to cover up too much of the Sakura ink, just because I do want to see the different shades that come out that are kind of highlighted here. It's just very, very pretty. So this red Silent Opium, the Scriven ink with Pennonia, I watered down a little bit, and so that's why it looks a little bit lighter in my paintings than in my writing sample. Looks a lot more brown here. But also, if you just, take a drop of the ink and you just put it down on paper, it's this sort of dark, you can kind of tell. It's just really dark brown. But it has this underlying red, which I think is really nice and interesting. I'm glad they made it like, a little bit more than just like a standard brown. And this green, when it dries, right, you got this like ink pools, and it's a warm green, which I really like. Well, it's a Kobe Akashi Museum Gold. Very cool. All right. Oh. Those are all beautiful pens. Thank you, G. Yeah, I like them too. Those colors pop. Yeah, they do work for summer. They do. I think it's mostly the pink and the red aspects that are kind of like coming out, you know? Very nice blooms. It's also nice. I think the palette just kind of works together. Kind of a nice combination. Which, when I'm inking up pens, I don't often think about palette. Like, I don't often think about colors that match or, you know, complement each other or anything like that. I'm literally just thinking about what pen I want to ink up for the month, what nib, if I can interchange nibs, what nib do I want to throw into it? And then I kind of think about, you know, the colors that I'm drawn to in that month or in the season. Are there any inks that I want to play around with? If they're ink samples or bottles, new inks, you know, stuff like that. So a lot of times I'm just kind of thinking about individual pens and what ink I want to use in them. And so it's interesting when I sort of see them collectively in a spread like this, or even when I'm kind of painting with some of the inks, to see, you know, sometimes they work really, really well together. Sometimes they don't, and there's a bit of a clash. But a lot of times I'm kind of surprised at how, you know, these inks sort of follow a certain pattern or a certain type of shade or a family of colors, and how well they can work together. And so it's very nice to explore that way as well. You know, unless you ink up all your pens with, you know, just one shade of, or one color or something like that, it's fine. You can still kind of do this monochrome, you know, version of painting or swatching. And I feel like you learn a little bit about yourself as well, what colors you're drawn to in that time frame, whether or not they're new inks. You bought them for a reason, right? You got them because you were drawn to them for a reason. And then also, if there are inks that you've had for a while, like, why did you take that ink out specifically to ink up your pen in that moment? Was it because of the pen body matching? Or is it one of those inks where you're just like, you know what, I haven't used this in a while, I should use it. And I find myself doing that sometimes. And so it's kind of fun to explore the ink a little bit more and see, you know, what are its properties that you've been drawn to. So that's very, very cool. Just ask your partner, please clean my pen. I do not trust my husband with my pens. It's so funny. He's one of those people that, like, he loves multi-pens. So like a Jetstream multi-pen. Or, you know, just a straight up, like, gel pen. And he's good with that. And so sometimes when I'm excited about a pen, or he sees me using something where he's like, ooh, cool, can I see that? I'm always like, okay, but it's a twist cap, don't pull on it. And also, you know, so I have to give him rules when he's using it, and it's kind of funny, but so no, I will clean my own pens. I just don't like it. I'll do it begrudgingly while listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something. Yeah. Yeah, very, very pretty. All your fountain pens are inked with brown, Suki. MB, toffee brown, ginger chicken. That's nice. Yeah, yeah. But you have like, you have shades of like KWZ honey versus like a ginger chicken, right? Like you have a little bit of yellow versus like orange and stuff. So at least you're kind of playing around with the different shades, which is really, really nice to do too. Yeah, 8 is a little bit more manageable for sure. And also, I think I've slowed down a lot on the number of pens I'm acquiring per year, or, you know, per sort of quarter. And so it's not that I'm inking up new pens all the time too, to test and to play around with. I kind of have the pens that I like, right? And I think I'm at the point where I know which pens I like to write with and use for certain purposes. those are the ones that will get inked up for sure. And then I kind of add 1 or 2 pens that, you know, have been sitting in my drawer and I really want to play with them and remind myself why I have them, why they're fun, you know. And so I can still keep the number down. Not to say you can't ink up more than, you know, whatever. You can ink up as many pens. You can ink up all your pens if you want to. But I think for me, it's like I want to spend time with each of those pens. And so in order to do that in a month, I do have to keep the number down because I don't use fountain pens exclusively. I also use, you know, notebooks and planners where I can't wait for ink to dry, or I can't carry around fountain pens, or for whatever reason, I just kind of, you know, stick to a gel pen or something. And so that way, you know, if I don't use fountain pens all the time, it's kind of hard to go through using each one of them and kind of feeling like I spend quality time with each of them. I know, they're like little babies. Closest to this I have is Pilot Chikurin Fun Ink. Yeah. Yeah. You're drawn to Sailor Akebi. We know. Yeah, I always enjoy hearing your decision making behind your choices. Yeah, Papa Gal, I love hearing, you know, and seeing what other people are using as well and why, right? Like, even if it's just to be like, yeah, I have this pen inked up because I take notes with it. It's like, oh, okay. Well, why? Like, you know, what makes it so noteworthy? What makes it so portable or easy to use or whatever? And can I use it too? I love hearing decision, like why someone uses a certain thing, their decision making process as well. So I don't mind sharing mine. Doesn't always make sense, but sometimes I kind of have a process that I work with. You can't stand having the same shades in all of my pens. It's annoying. Yeah. Well, I just feel like it's a little bit pointless. I get it, why you would kind of need to stick to a certain color, especially if you're using it, you know, for work notes or something like that. Or if that's your preference. But personally, it's like, if I'm going to use the same color in a different pen, it better be a different shade. Like, I like light to dark to, you know, something that just makes it stand out a little bit more. Compare and contrast. Your partner would not like that. Lewis has a lot of sensory issues, so he panicked getting the ink on his hands. Yeah, that's understandable. I totally get that too. Number 1 dating advice I got here in the community is find someone willing to clean your pens and join the hobby. Yeah. Well, that ain't me. If your first question is, do you like inking pens? I don't know. I wonder what the ratio of people who would be like, yes, I enjoy that very much, versus someone being like, no, you have to clean my pens. Yeah, if only you were into pens before you met Lewis. Yeah, I know. I mean, you know, in the end, who cares? Who cares if someone likes cleaning pens or even using fountain pens, right? But I am getting my kids into fountain pens. They have fountain pens, they have fountain pen inks, they have ink samples, they have nice notebooks. And so, you know, I'm trying to get them into, they love using inks and stuff like that. So that makes me happy. But yeah, enable anyone you can, right? Yeah, will you ink a pen? You had your cousin clean your pens? That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Okay, friends, I do have to get going. At least we got through what I wanted to get through. So we did currently inked currently inked, drawing and writing with my fountain pens, looking at, some of the newer inks that I've gotten, including the Scriven Montreal Pen Show ink, which looks really, really nice. If you are going to Scriven, Fuzzy Turnip. If you are going, it's this Saturday, right? May 30th. So have fun. And, if you pick up the ink or, let us know if you do get to see it, in person and stuff like that. Let us know how you like it. If you are on a holiday long weekend, enjoy the rest of your long weekend, friends. And hopefully the rest of your week sort of, goes smoothly and is relaxing and not too intense. I'll stream on Wednesday again, same time, same place, a little bit longer. And what will we do on Wednesday? We'll probably do some sort of painting or drawing, something like that. Painting, yes, because I have something I want to show you, friends. So come back on Wednesday if you can, and we'll do more art stuff, right? So have a good week, and enjoy your day, enjoy the rest of your week, and yeah, I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll see you in other streams. Maybe not the Pen Addict stream this week, but Lisa, Olive Octopus, and Ink Dependence Mike, etc. So I'll see you around, friends. Take out your stationery supplies, go play with them, take out your fountain pens, just write and draw with them, explore them a little bit more, and always be kind to others, be kind to yourself, and have a great day and have a great week. Bye, friends. I'll catch you next time.